rolled out to our surprise without any discussion ahead of time at all. And then there are just other factors within it that we feel aren't fair and equitable to all school systems across the state, and we feel those need to be addressed.
The governor's message is that we want the communities to understand what these rankings mean. And I truly believe our communities do understand the words excellent and excellent with distinction.
So out of 1,001 school systems that they're going to be measuring in Ohio, only 22 are A's. And I don't think that's accurate. And in Northwest Ohio, primarily most of the districts are B's.
Some of the response that we got from some of our local superintendents a couple of weeks ago when we took up the topic of education and the changing face of education and the state report card grading system here in the state. We're so glad to have with us State Representative Barbara Sears representing the 46th District. Barbara, good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
You are home for a little while. We wanted to grab you while we had the chance to get you in here and talk about it. You and I have talked about this issue before, and as you hear what some of those superintendents are feeling up in these parts, and I'm sure around the state as well. In fact, there were times when I was asking them when they were in here, are you going to petition? Are you going to try to put a stop to this? What is the read in Columbus right now on these gradings changing?
Well, you know, it's interesting. You know, obviously the governor put forth his part of the first blush, I guess I should say, of his education reform legislation in Senate Bill 316. Immediately, the report card component of it, the third grade reading component of it, and a couple other pieces were immediately pulled out and separated for additional study. And much to the points that we listened to at the beginning of the show, you know, the report card is still out. Although the House bill itself, or the Senate bill itself, has passed out of the House Committee of Education, the report card component of it is going to be addressed under a separate piece of legislation, for exactly the reason that was pointed out on the sound bites earlier. Yeah. We just need to look at it in a more thoughtful approach. Certainly if you look at the governor's position literally with the entire budget and the entire MBR, our mid-biennium budget review process, whether it's in education, in medication, or in our criminal justice system, you'll see that he's looking for, and we are looking for, as a legislative branch, looking for ways to measure what we fund.
Right.
And that's a lot of the reason why we're looking at changing the educational grade card so that we can measure what we fund.
You're a fan of the ABCDF type of grading scale, but I posed to you, and we talked about this on the phone, is it fair to take some of these districts that have been excellent with distinction, and they're topping out, and then they get dropped down to a B?
Well, you know, that's the amazing thing that I believe that we're going to get the good fix for. Because you're right. When somebody's already an A, where do you go from there? So you need to have an opportunity for them to stay at an A. Mm-hmm. If I've reached 99% or 100% graduation rate, where do I go from there?
And they hit that distinction and then they lose it.
And that's where we need to look at some of the yearly progress requirements that are in the current grading system and recognize that those don't function well.
But is it fair in your estimation and in the state's estimation, legislators that you work with, to look at all of these schools in Northwest Ohio and just say across the board, for all intents and purposes, they're all B's?
No, absolutely it's not fair. And in fact, that's the exact reason why it got pulled out of the legislation, why it's staying out of the main bill, and why it's going to be worked on over the summertime. And we've got a great collaboration of folks. The superintendents are coming to the table, teachers, parents. You know, we've got a full coalition of folks that are taking a look at this. Representative Stubbleton has said we're going to slow down the process on this piece of it. We're going to pull these out. Mm-hmm. And I think you can see that we've done that. This whole MBR process, in the state of Ohio, we usually do one budget every 2 years. On the off year, we make corrections, just the normal tweaking that you would do in any budget through any cycle. This one, the governor, to his credit, and I agree with what he did in virtually many areas, he said, we need to look at the reform that we did in the main budget. We need to continue that progress going forward on an annual basis, not wait 2 years just because it's a day on the calendar. Yeah. We in the House, when we received his budget, we said, time out, we're going to pull energy out, we're going to pull education out, we're going to pull all these different components, and in fact, we took his one bill and made 10 out of it.
Do you think going into the fall, obviously the next school year is going to be here before we know it, do you think this thing will be implemented before the fall?
Before
this
the fall,
grading scale?
You know, I think I'll have a better idea of that in 2 weeks when we're back down for kind of some cleanup stuff, whether or not we feel that we've gotten all the parties comfortable with it. If the parties are comfortable with it, I think we will. If they're not comfortable with it, I think we'll push and not finish this project up until the fall.
I want to hit some other topics.
Sure.
2 of 4 casinos are
Okay.
now open.
Yes.
Toledo's opened this past week, and I don't know if you were here for any of the festivities, the gala or whatnot, but as you look forward to Columbus getting one, Cincinnati getting one, is this an answer in this economic period we're in for our woes?
Oh,
I mean, it doesn't matter at this point. I mean, it's not like we can turn back.
Right.
But do you think this is going to be a success story when we look back on it 10 years, 12 years?
You know, it certainly isn't the answer. There is no one answer, and nor should there be, because if you only have one answer and something happens to the one answer, then you're left hanging with nothing. You know, it's certainly a component of it. You know, this was certainly.
Were you a fan of it from the get-go?
I don't necessarily have an issue with gaming, the whole concept of it. You know, I like to go. I'm fortunate I don't have an addiction issue. You know, so I can go and spend a half hour enjoy an absolutely amazing dinner and some wonderful entertainment, and that's a component of it. And I enjoy that. That's a fun evening out.
Yeah.
It's certainly not where you're going to find me daily. You know, so.
And even the casino officials, I mean, they said last week, they said, we realized the novelty is going to wear off.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, but it's a wonderful venue. I did not make the gala. We were on the House floor still in session, so I was not able to make that. But I did make the event yesterday and thoroughly enjoyed it. Day before yesterday, thoroughly enjoyed it and had a wonderful time. It's a great entertainment venue. It will add very nicely to the arena, add very nicely to Fifth Third Field. You know, we'll have the hockey, we'll have the baseball. We have other things going on in the community and in the surrounding areas.
So a real trickle down.
And this is a component of it that rounds out a very appealing growth in the Toledo area.
I want to touch briefly on the pit bull legislation you've been so active with, but quickly, did you ever think in your time as a state legislator you would have to deal with an exotic animal issue?
No, and I am, okay, so I'm Northwest Ohio, and I do have family down in the Cambridge-Zanesville area, but there are animals that I didn't even recognize the name of that we have in the state of Ohio.
But holy cow,
and that
Barbara.
was pretty surprising.
I mean, this went nuts.
Yes. And the legislation, I think, is solid. It encompassed a tremendous amount of breadth in trying to regulate and manage a really for us a brand new area. So I suspect we'll see some follow-up legislation as we go to implement.
Do you think it's strict enough?
You know, I think it's a great place to start. Do I think we'll need to look at?
Did it take something like Zanesville to really kick it into gear, you think?
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, there's always a hesitancy. You know, you want to be very, very cautious when you start to regulate something new, because every time you regulate, you're taking something away from people. You know, one of the things that that we discovered because of what happened down in Zanesville is just how prevalent having exotic animals is, and how misaligned or unorganized the care, the treatment, and the prevention of injuries, you know, there is out there in that area. So putting some overarching regulations in place, I think, is a solid way to protect Ohioans.
Finally, this past week, Lucas County Dog Warden Julie Lyle, she started adopting out pit bulls, and you have been very vocal as far as legislation, House Bill 14, regarding this vicious dog issue. Where do things stand right now? Are you happy with where they stand?
You know what, I am. It actually just took effect a couple weeks ago. So it's just now actually the law of Ohio. Been hearing some great stuff from judges and parole officers and counties saying, you know, we really like the fact that now we can actually enforce some kind of law on more than just a vicious dog, a pit bull. You know, we've balanced that out. We're recognizing that that all dogs have the ability to be vicious. All dogs have the ability to be amazing family pets. And we finally have fixed the constitutional error in the way that it was done before, so that we actually have tools out there to make it work. So there are still some communities that are struggling with it that aren't happy, but when I sit down and actually talk to them about the tools that it actually gives their law enforcement, the tools that it actually gives their community to solve a problem if they've got a problem, they'll say, yeah, this actually does a lot more than we thought
And
it
this
did. We're
helps
happy
not
about
only
it.
owners, but also neighbors
Absolutely.
and so on and so forth.
Absolutely it does. You know, now not only can we say that this dog is dangerous or vicious, but now we can actually do something about it. Whereas without this legislation, you had no tools to accomplish any kind of fix it once you found a problem.
Well, please keep us informed as far as how the things go down at the State House regarding the education bill over the next couple of weeks. Enjoy your short time off.
Absolutely.
It's
Thank
good
you.
to see you again,
Nice
Barbara.
to see you too.
Stay right there. We will wrap things up for this Sunday here on the Roundtable right after this.